What up gamers, I'm Jason and today on Dice & Dragons I'm going to be teaching you how to play Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape, published by CMON Games and designed by Olteanu and Marco Portugal. Hopefully I pronounced those names right. Pretty sure I did. This is based on the original game of the same name, also by CMON. Now in this game, 1 to 5 players are going to be taking on the role of Lightbringers. They'll be venturing off on different quests, fighting mobs in the dungeon, gaining loot, fighting roaming monsters in the dungeons, gaining loot as they try to complete their objectives. Now, if you're not familiar with Massive Darkness, that's just a little bit of a breakdown as to what you'll be doing in the game. Now, in this how to play, we're going to show you how to play each of the different character classes, as well as go over all of the different mechanics you may encounter in the dungeon and the different phases of the game. Now, if you want to skip to a specific section of the video, take a look down below in the video description. I've got timestamps, so if you're just looking how to play a specific character like the Rogue, feel free to skip ahead. With that being said, we're going to get this set up and teach you how to play. Now I'm going to teach you how to play Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape. You may be wondering why I'm not doing a full setup like I've done in the past for many games, but as you can see, the game takes up a lot of room. I even believe that the cards, some of the stuff that we have at the top here is a little bit cut off, but you can see it. That's important. I really just have a specific amount of components to cover what I'll be teaching you using a map based on the tutorial. Now, I'm going to cut to a picture right now. You can see the game set up on our table. It is quite large. That's why I don't have all the components out. So here you've got the player board for the Ranger. Just below, I have set up the Paladin, and we're going to go through a few of the basic setup elements and I'll explain what we have currently on the board. So here we have the player card, their special ability, their shadow ability, health, mana, and then some nice art. Each player will be able to pick a starting weapon, and they will start with just battered leather armor. As you can see from the Paladin, he also has a battered leather armor and a rusty sword. You're going to place your pegs for the XP, both at 0, and then mark your starting level. We're going to also pick our skills, which we'll do in just a second. I want to just show you how to set up the treasure bag. Very straightforward. You place the 10 common loot tokens and 5 of the blue rare loot tokens into the bag and shake them up. So that's how you're going to be starting every single mission. Now, in setup, it does tell you to set aside for each player a rare and 3 epic loot tokens. We have those, but as we're not going to be getting to that portion in this how to play, we're going to leave it to the side. Now you're going to set up the darkness track with the darkness marker at level 1. You'll need your door cards. You're going to need your mob levels 1 through 2 cards. You also need your item cards for the mobs. I've got readily available the common treasures as well as the rare treasures, as those are really the 2 that we're going to potentially get to as I'm teaching you the game. Now, I've added a pillar and added a few elements that aren't necessarily on this actual board. This is the tutorial board. I've added also the roaming monster that we're going to use just to have him set up. As you can see, there are some areas that don't have doors, so you actually will not be using them. Up here, we've got the amount of Lightbringer tokens that's appropriate to the amount of players. We've got 2 characters, so we have 1 Lightbringer token. Up here, we've got the fountain, the forge, the bear traps, and the spike traps. We'll cover those a little later on. Here's the portion where the roaming monster will spawn, and there's different spawn points that are triggered as you go up the track. Now, I've added this portal. It does not exist on the map, same as the pillar. These portals get added when you're playing with 3 to 5 players as a section where monsters will spawn, which we'll cover in the darkness phase. That's why it's there on the map. The treasure chests aren't there as well. I just wanted to be able to explain those elements. So how this is going to work, we're going to go through a few turns of the game using the Ranger and the Paladin. We'll then showcase their abilities, teach you how they play. After that, we'll take a cut. We're going to go through the other elements that you see, like the darkness phase, the level up phase, things like that. Then I'll teach you how to play the other 4 classes that are in the game. We really want to break it down and keep it simple and straightforward, but you're going to get a good flow of the game from our starting point here. Now, just to give you an idea as to what the map normally would look like, as you can see for your setup, here's the book, there's the instructions, you've got your quest objectives, which is to gather the scroll, which means pick up the scroll, and then there was another objective token, which I've replaced with the portal for the moment. It's what you'd have to get in order to escape the map. You can see that right here. So you've got all the instructions. And with regards to loot tokens, you'll only see one on the setup, but depending on the amount of players, you will add more. So you'll be drawing more loot from the bag, and you'll be able to get some stuff quickly. So there you have it. We're all set up. You can see the symbol for the starting player zone. That's where the players are. So let's go through it. So on the back of the rulebook, you've got your nice instructions for the phase. So the hero phase, which includes movement. So each time you decide to move, you get 2 movement points, which can be used to either move to an adjacent zone. As such, you cannot move diagonally, so you can do back and forth. You may open a door. So you'll have to open the door and then draw one of the door cards. You can also interact with an object, such as the loot tokens or chests that are in the spaces. After that, there is attack, trade, and equip. So for example, we'll cover the trade right now. You're in this zone, even if there were more heroes. So just an example, if we had all heroes here, and this was later on in the game, one person can take a trade action. Every player in this zone will be able to trade. So you can exchange any equipment that you have, whether it's equipped or unequipped, among the players. You can take a recover action, which will heal 2 health and 2 mana. And then there are special actions that may be represented by your player board, your player card, which we don't have. So I'll just quickly showcase the wizard. See, they have their own action right here, which lets them gain 3 mana. Now, one thing I had not done quite yet is put out the health for each player. So that's 5 health and 2 mana. And for the Paladin, it is 6 health and 4 mana. So we'll just put those nearby. As you can see, I'm just pulling these out, moving across the board. So we're good to go. And as I mentioned, we're going to play this just like a regular game. So the first phase that we have is the hero phase. So what we want to do is, we got some bad guys. We want to see what's going on in there. And luckily the ranger gets an extra movement point. So we'll activate the ranger first. So first movement point will be then to move here and then open the door. We will then reach over and draw a door card. So this is what it says: spawn 1 mob on any portal. Players choose and then remove 1 monster from this chamber if possible. So in this case, it's a good example. So this token would actually be removed and we would spawn the mob on this portal if it existed. So that's just a great example as to how the door cards can change up your plans. As it doesn't fit with what I'm trying to accomplish and teach you though, we're going to put it back. We'll draw a different door card. So this one also said spawn 1 mob on any portal. So we'll take a look. Okay, perfect. So in this case, is each hero on this tile would gain 2 mana. There's 2 heroes, they gain 2 mana. So as you can see, some nasty stuff: spawn 1 mob on any portal. Could be spawn a mob and take 1 away. We'll draw a 4th door card just to give you another example. You discard all the tokens in this chamber without effect and then spawn a roaming monster in the furthest zone of this chamber. All zones in this chamber with loot receive 1 additional loot. So lots of different things that could happen. So in the case of having drawn this card, for example, and as I'm trying to play through the game and just really show you the elements, you would have effectively removed this, taken a roaming monster, and then spawn them in the furthest away space, and added an extra loot token. A really terrible card to draw for this room, as you really don't want to face off against one of these guys so early on. But in this case, we'll imagine it was the one that I showed you with me drawing the 2 mana. As you can see, we don't stack the deck or anything like that. What we're then going to do is go to the mob deck. We'll draw a mob. In this case, it would be the gargoyles that we put into play. As I did not prep for the gargoyles, I only took out a specific enemy type just because I wanted to have one that gives a good example. So we're going to be using the skeletons for this playthrough. So we'll spawn skeletons, the leader of the skeletons in the zone. We can now remove that token. Plus we spawn 1 mob per player, meaning this total mob has 6 health. We will also need to spawn a loot token. So we'll need to take 2 loot tokens, 1 for the room. That's really lucky to pull a rare like that. and then one that will go on the monster that will be a reward if they're defeated. It'll be a common one, and then the mobs are equipped with their own item. So you will have shuffled up the mob deck. I don't believe I have. I'll just give it a quick shuffle, reveal the top card. So they get a precision bow. Pretty good. Something that the Ranger would actually love to pick up. So you equip them with this, and for the sake of keeping things simple, I'm just going to put this here to remind us that that is what they currently have. Now, we then have one more movement point, so we can move here. The choice is we can take more movement actions, move around, and pick some stuff up if we'd like, or we'd want to engage and attack our enemies. Now we know that they've got something that we actually want, which is pretty cool. So we'll have to decide what we'd like to do. Now, I'm going to back this up a little bit. We were talking about the setup, and there's something I neglected to do, which was also pick our character's starting skill. I'm going to use this spot of the player board because it's very unlikely that we're going to get some of these skills, but everyone has a skill. So you can pick any of these level 1 skills. As you can see here, we got fire arrow, piercing arrow. Now these are mixed up. You can see there's some level 2 and level 4s, or arrow volley. I've always really enjoyed the fire arrow, which I would take as my starting skill. Now, when I get to level 2, I can take another level 1 skill, or I can actually add a level 2 skill, as we saw here at the end. Now, if I wanted to get fire arrow 2, I'd have to have picked it as a level 1 skill, and then it'd be available for me once I finally got up to level 3. Now, for the Paladin, they have this board where they can consecrate different areas, and don't worry, we'll go over that in more detail later on. And their starting skill has always been, at least that's what I've seen from everyone that's played as them, is the boldness skill, which is pretty cool. And at the start of your run, you can bless a skill to make it stronger. So you can see, let's see, attacker reroll a die and gets +1 attack, but there's no consecrated zones or anything like that because the Paladin hasn't acted yet. So we're ready to go. We want to attack. Do we want to try to pick up some loot? Now we do have some other movement points. So good strategy if we felt that we really needed better gear to take them on would be to potentially spend our movement points. Like you could pick this one up, and this will let you draw the top card from the rare treasure deck. It's not bad actually. This would be the Thief's Scarf, and it's a pretty cool thing to do. Now, may want to then move one here. Then you could pick up like the chest. This will let you draw 3 rare items. Now, as I mentioned before, this is just for an example. There are these greater chests and these smaller chests. They each have different things in them. They may be rares. They could also be commons, and they could also be epics. So for example, in the greater chest, there's a chance to get this one that has 3 epic items, or it could be 3 common items. What I'm going to do though is I just included them on the board to show you what you can get. Getting that much gear when you're only facing off against one mob is something that really wouldn't work. But you will have picked up this other one. We'll move one here and then one here, just giving other players some space. And we really don't want to be in the same area as the mob because we're the ranger. We have these nice arrow cards, which trigger when we make ranged attacks. So it doesn't have to be a bow and arrow, it just has to be something that lets you make a ranged attack. So now we've got one attack action left. So with regards to the ranger, what you will do is you will be drawing cards from your arrow card deck. And the goal is to get 7 or less arrows and try to trigger some special effects. So what we're going to then do is draw the arrow cards. Let's see what we get for effects. So we draw 2. We draw another 4. That puts us at 6, which means we probably want to stop here. So at 6, we are able to trigger the effects that are here in beige. If we'd happen to get 7, so let's draw one more card just to see. No, it'd be a bust. If we'd happen to get 7, we'd be able to trigger the effects of the top row here. Otherwise, if we'd drawn it like it is right here with 2, 4, 6, 8, we suffer the negative effects below. So in any case, we drew our cards. This is what we get. Now, we're in a light zone here, which is not necessarily the best place to attack the enemy from. Just a reminder, you cannot move orthogonally, but this is a big open space, so you do have line of sight to this space, meaning you can't engage the enemy. This last extra move is not something that we would want to do. You can always forego movement points. Realistically, I only had 2, but I got the extra one from here. So attacking from a light zone and attacking from the shadow zone are 2 different things. So let's just see what the die pool would be if we're attacking from a light zone. Now, for my bow and arrow, I get 1 yellow die. The defense of the skeletons is 1 blue die. And then we get 2 black enemy dice for each mob minion. Now, however, if I'm attacking from a shadow zone, I get the shadow dice, which lets us trigger a bonus effect. So really, there's no point to be in the light zone unless I just want to be there. So we get extra 2 mana, and they have -1 shield. So anything that, unfortunately, we're not triggering any mana effects right now. We don't have anything to spend it on. But let's roll the dice and see what we get. So that's not the best roll, but it's not terrible. Now the hand has a special effect with the skeletons. If you roll 2 of these hands, then you will have to add another skeleton minion. At this point, we did get 2 hits. They didn't get a shield, so we will be removing 1 of the mobs, meaning that we do gain 1 experience point, and the extra damage you would use to mark the space. But they did roll this slash, and the slash, unfortunately, means we would take a damage, so we'd have to reduce our health by 1. But wait, we're also in shadow. And you notice what it says here, attack, you get to reroll 2 dice. So let's see if we can actually do a little bit better. There's a lot of better symbols on the shadow dice. We don't want to get hit. We might end up spawning something. Well, not necessarily actually a better roll, unfortunately. In this case, with that roll, probably just leave the minion out, and we don't do 1 damage. So just an example of what you can do when you're in shadow. This is specifically listed as shadow. We're not going to do it. We'll keep the roll that we had. I just wanted to show you what the ability was. Killing a minion and getting an XP is better than taking a chance for a big reroll, especially as the Paladin has yet to activate. So we will discard these arrow cards. I'll put them just next to the player board. Now, you'll notice what this fire arrow skill means is that if we'd happen to get that crit, we'd be able to use a fire token on the enemy. What fire tokens do, and this will be a good time to teach you about fire and ice. So fire or ice. A fire token, when something activates, you will roll a yellow die, deal damage equal to what you roll. Now, a freeze token will make an enemy mob lose an action. In order for roaming monsters to lose actions, you'll need to have 2 frost tokens per action, just because they're a lot tougher. So unfortunately, we're not able to light anyone on fire. And this will then represent the end of my turn. I got 1 XP. It is now the Paladin's turn. So there's a few different things that we can take a look at here. And you'll notice we haven't done anything, so we can yet. So it says at the start of the round, you may bless 1 skill until the end of the round, and you can place 1 consecration token in a zone in line of sight. There is no other consecration tokens. Then you may remove it at any time for free. Just before I forget, need to knock the health down, as we saw, to 4. So we want to be able to get right in there. So we've got mana. So this Paladin will spend the mana. We're going to put this blue zone right here, and we can do this at any time. As you notice, it does not say it's an action. It says that players that start a move action in this zone gain 1 MP. So we also have our skill, which we can put into play. Like this is the combat one. You could have put it under here. You could put it someplace else. Obviously, it can be in the combat, but we want to be able to get going. So we go 1, 2, 3, and there we go. We're in a shadow zone. We can now engage. You can then remove your consecration token at any time, which is a good thing to remove. Spend another mana. So take this down to 2. To consecrate this zone is green, which gives us the combat 1 reroll, plus we get another reroll from boldness and +1 damage. So just a much better setup. We'll just leave this on the board so that you can see it. Actually, sorry, do it like this right now. And let's go ahead and build the die pool. So defense is a blue and a black. We are attacking with 1 yellow, and we need the purple shadow die. So these are the die pool for our attack on the minions. So not the best attack, not terrible. But we do get +1 damage. We also have 2 rerolls. So in this case, I kind of want to get the mana back because I spent 2, so I can go fully back up to 4. So I'll take the mana back at this point and not necessarily try rerolling anything and just remove a mob. So you always have to remove the non-lieutenants. Paladin over here is going to gain XP. You can't see him just doing it off camera right now. And now he's still going to have 1 last action. So I can make that same action again. Go for the attack. At this point he blocks. The skeletons will be defeated. When you defeat a leader, every player gets 2 XP. So that would bring both players up to 3 XP. And that'd be the end of the round. We now go into the next phase, which would be the enemy phase. Then there's the level up phase. Then there's the darkness phase. Now, as things are going fairly smoothly for us here, we're going to change things up a bit just to kind of show you how things may go wrong, how enemies may attack, and how things will work. So let's say we did not have nearly as successful a round, and the skeleton was still alive. And before we actually do that, because I almost forgot something, once you defeat the enemy, you take their weapon. So this would go to the Paladin, so he could equip it, he'd be able to use it. Probably want to try to trade that at some point to the Ranger. You also have the loot token here, meaning you go to the top of the deck, and you draw this card to gain the common item. But let's say things didn't go as well. Actually, you know what? We'll have 1 enemy there. And it's now the enemy phase. So they get to attack us. So we go ahead and build their attack pool with 1 yellow die. They have 1 black die. The enemies will never roll a shadow die. And we have the 1 defensive die. So this would be their attack. They'd roll. And at this point, they do 1 damage, 2 damage, and then they have that. So in this case, we've got ignore one of these things. Not the best roll here, but we can ignore it. So they would deal 1 damage to us. The Paladin would take 1 health worth of damage. Then they would attack again because the enemies get 2 activations. As I'm in the same space as them, it would be nasty. So the Paladin, once again, just show you, you can ignore 1. So it would take another damage, bringing him down to 4. Now in a situation where the Paladin was far away, they would have attacked either the Paladin because he's the only one orthogonally to them. They'd move 1, they would attack once. If everyone was further away, they would move 1, 2, and that would be the end of their activation. Next, you would have the level up phase. So we'll go through a level up phase here quickly. So what would happen is if the Ranger had 5 XP, you would go down to 0. You move up to level 2. This does not affect anything. However, once you get up to level 3 or level 4, it changes the mobs that you will be drawing from. You've got the level 3, 4 mobs, and also the level 5 mobs. Now, if you do the campaign expansions, it does go all the way up to level 10. So now I get to level 2, I'd have the option of adding a new level 1 skill or one of the level 2 skills to the character. After the level up phase, we go into the darkness phase. So what actually happened though, we'll go back and set everything up the way it was. Paladin did well. Everyone's got 3 XP. And we're going into the darkness phase. So first phase, we go up by 1. It's going to be our turn. We're just going to move around, pick up objectives, and get out of here. So we need to get the scroll. We need to get out of here. Like I said, this represents a portal. But we want to represent everything that's part of the darkness phase. And just a correction here. You saw that we level up. You saw that when we get up there, we get a skill. At the level up phase, you also gain these items. So you gain a heart and a rare token would go into the bag. That's why I said earlier during the setup, you'd want the tokens, like the rare tokens and the epic treasure tokens near your player board. So first phase, nothing had happened. We'd be in a really good spot. We can do a lot of cool stuff. Let's just go through what the round would look like. And I neglected to do this. This is just a reminder for heroes when they activate it. When your activation is done, you just flip it over. You can use it or not use it. As you notice, I didn't do it with the playthrough. I don't think it's really necessary. So in this case, it's another hero phase. We can see what we want to do. We want to try to get out of here, but there's going to be a roaming monster. So first thing we'd want to do is pick up the token. Paladin can open the door, and then can move 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be an entire turn. Now you may be wondering why I got the pillar here is because the pillar affects line of sight. So it's just an example. If we do have enemies, you're trying to attack enemies on the opposite side of the pillar. When you make an attack, you would lose a yellow die. So that's just how everything would work. So just keep that in mind. Wanted to teach you that. It's also a good time to teach you some of the other stuff. So let's actually do that before we keep going. So all that nasty stuff that can be on the map or good stuff is all listed here on page 29, including chests. So you do have a fountain. Fountains are tokens always placed face down. You can spend 1 movement point to interact with one. The bear trap, unless stated otherwise, they're always placed face down. When a hero moves into a zone with a bear trap, they flip the token and they follow the instructions. After that, the token is removed. The spike trap is the same thing. If you move into it, they flip the token. If it's blank, you suffer no wounds, and then you remove the token. Then the forge is where you can actually turn in items to upgrade items. So let's take a look at this stuff here. So if we had a fountain, we were damaged, could use this to fully heal. That's what's on the back of this token. If, for example, there was a forge in this space and the ranger has 3 common treasures, you could cash in all 3 of these for a rare treasure. You can cash in 3 rares for an epic. Now the level that you can go up to is always based on the weakest treasure. So if you cashed in 3 rares, a rare and 2 commons, you could go up to an epic. You have to have only rares. Sorry, I said that all wrong. I'm going to start that over. If you cashed in 2 commons and a rare, you see on the back, you'd only be able to get another rare. It has to be 3 of the same type to go up a tier. Otherwise, it's a tier above the lowest item you cashed in, which are the common items, meaning you can cash in your starting items for common items. So, sorry about that. I made that confusing, but I corrected myself. So we've got the bear traps here. So if we'd enter the space with a bear trap, you'd have to flip it over. Could be lose 1 action, or as you can see this one, it's identical. Nothing would happen. Same thing with the spike trap. Take 2 wounds, 1 wound. There's one where nothing would happen. All right, so we're trying to get out of the dungeon, and overall, because we cleared stuff out, we're actually doing fairly well. This guy's not around, so then basically, you could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'd actually have enough actions to get out. This is really just a tutorial, and one thing that Drew and I mentioned in our review is depending on your player count, the game can definitely be a little easier than at a higher player count. As you can see, at 2 players, we beat the monsters, we're already on our way out of here. At this point, maybe I got away and the other guy was stuck, depends on the rules of scenario, but quite straightforward. So let's see what happens with the darkness phase. We're going to walk this all back to here where we were, or a variation as to where we were, because I think it makes more sense that the ranger is there. We'll imagine we're now at the darkness phase. So we go to here, the 3rd darkness phase. You would draw from the roaming monster deck just to get things prepped. I already picked the roaming monster. And we have the Incubus Lord Lydian that would spawn. So they would spawn on that roaming monster portal. They're now in play. As the darkness phase is after the enemy phase, they're not going to act until later on. Now, what you see on this darkness track here, as you get to 4, you add a rare token to the map. 5, you would trigger the portal, and you would draw mobs. In this case, let's imagine it was the skeletons that got drawn. They would be placed on a portal. So on every portal. So at 5 players, you can have 2 portals spawning stuff. Here it's an epic treasure. You You go up here again, it would be the roaming monster. Then there's a backside that's just only 4 rounds that constantly loops around. But as you can see, things get more dangerous and more dangerous. So let's say here we are, essentially advancing things by turn. We're going to have to face off against a roaming monster. And what we'll actually do right now, because I want to kind of go through another turn, full hero phase, we're going to take a quick cut. I'm going to change up the heroes so that we'll be able to see the heroes try to attack the roaming monster. Ideally, in a situation like this, when the rules just tell you to escape, you want to just run away. But I want to teach you the 2 other characters. You got an idea as to how to play the Paladin, consecrating zones and using the abilities. You got an idea how to play the Ranger, trying to go for those big hits in order to trigger the best effects. And then potentially, see, once again, you could bust right there, potentially dealing massive amounts of damage, as you can see here. You roll this. Apologies for the quick fade. I was just explaining where we're going. So we got to show you the Paladin using the consecration zones and their skills to boost combat. You saw the Ranger trying to trigger those big effects to do massive damage. And as you can see, some of these effects may have let us destroy a mob entirely early on. What we're going to do, we'll show you what combat with a roaming monster is like. We're going to switch out the characters, and we're not really going to follow through any of the phases anymore. You kind of got the gist of it. Hero phase, enemy phase, level up phase if you can, then you do the darkness phase, and you will restart. What I want to do right now is teach you how to play the 4 other classes and showcase the roaming monster. After that, I'll be coming back at you with a quick outro. Sorry for that fade, just found out that the camera can only record for 30 minutes in segments, and I just went over, so apologies there, but we'll be back and we'll showcase some more content. All right, so I've changed things up just a little bit. We're going to pretend that we stopped here. Oh, neglected to remove the consecration. We're going to show you what happens with roaming monsters and also take a look at the wizard and berserker class. You can really kind of forget some of the other stuff that we've got going on. I've just made a few modifications, and we're going to teach you how you equip these guys and get them started. So with regards to the wizard, you will draw a spell and pick one of the level 1 spells to place on your board. So these all represent base spells that you can spend the amount of mana to do. So you can spend, and we'll turn it the way that it's just a little clearer this way. So you can spend 1 mana for +1 attack, 2 mana for heal 3, 1 mana to be able to reroll a die, or 1 mana to move 1. What you will do is you place a spell on your amulet. Once you cast a spell, triggering its effect, you rotate the amulet. Now these are not actions. You can also just spend mana to rotate it if you would like. So it's really up to you what you want to do. I mean, you may be here, you might be trying to set up for a big attack, so you might want to spend 2 mana to 1, 2, 3 mana to go all the way back around. It may not be the most useful thing to do. Now, we do have a lot more mana with the wizard, so we'll add 6 mana right here. We've got some mana off to the side for the berserker. So what they have is they've got this track with a rage and a stance. Now the berserker, you can pick an ability. One I really like is Fatal Fury, which you can tell, you see it goes under your blood rage stance. So each skill goes under a different stance. You can spend rage to change stances. Rage is damage that you take. So you notice that attack, take 1 wound. There's ways for you to build rage. In order to teach you how the character works, we'll just put some rage here as if they'd already taken some damage. Now we don't need this portal token anymore, as we're really just teaching you how to play with a few of these components. And at this point, we're going to imagine that we're starting off with the enemy phase, because I want to show you how Lydian, the Incubus Lord, works. Now, one thing we did not do is set up their tokens in terms of loot. They would start with 1 loot, and then you'd go into the bag, you would draw 2 other loot tokens that you'd gain for defeating him. He has a set attack value. They have specific actions that they're going to do. So in this case, we need our turn here. So if there is a hero up to 3 zones away, regardless of line of sight, place Lydian in the zone with the furthest hero up to 3 zones away, regardless of line of sight, and add 1 fire token to the hero and attack them. So at this point, you know, we'd light the barbarian on fire. Fire effect is the same as if a player cast fire. You would have to roll 1 yellow die and take the damage on your turn. At this point, we want more damage, more rage for our barbarian. So what we need to do is then build the attack pool, which is listed below, which is 1 orange, 2 black. And then we'd add 1 yellow die. We'd roll it and see what the damage is. Well, we've got the hands. So it says attack 1. It says after combat, resolve all fire token on the defending hero, and you only do it once per combat. So there you go. So we have to now resolve this. Oh, and I get to roll a blue die for defense. So I'll be taking a damage. Then go on the rage. I'll just re-roll this yellow die that's right here. So I'll take another damage. Goes to rage. And then, don't forget, they get 2 activations, so the enemy would do this again. So you really want to try to make sure you're in specific spots. I mean, look, if you can actually trap him in a light zone, see, Lydian takes 3 wounds and moves to the closest shadow zone. So we're in a light zone here. It's not really the best spot to be. But they would then do this again because this was their first activation, so they're going to do another activation. So we'd have to basically roll. Let's say they attack the wizard this time. And yuck, as you can see, walloped. And that's really just going to take out the wizard because the wizard only has 4 health. So keep that in mind. At this point, what happened is the wizard would be defeated, go down. Now, you can help the wizard recover, or you can spend your Lightbringer token, which is your 1 health, to get the player back in action and get them up to 2 health. So recover actions can be taken on other players, or you do the Lightbringer token. But you also do get this effect now, which is reroll a die every combat. So as you can see, these monsters are nasty. Their health is also 7 per hero, and we're trying to attack them in a light zone, which is really not the best thing to do. So let's go ahead and take a look at the wizard first. Now the wizard has the Ash Wand, which is magical, which means you can attack in a range of 0 and 1. I neglected to mention it, but if you have a ranged weapon, the bow and arrow, you can attack anywhere in line of sight except in zone 0. And then if you've got the melee weapon, such as one of these, it is range 0, so they have to be in the same space as you. Symbols right there. So let's see what the wizard would have to do. Well, we will, let's imagine we had the spell set up here, so we'd build our attack dice, which isn't great right now, but we've got 1 yellow. Their defense is 2 blue and a black. So as you can see, ideally at this point, you'd maybe be in a shadow zone to use some abilities. Hopefully you have some skills. Roll the dice, see what you get. So at this point, there'd be fire damage that would resolve. They roll 2 defense. So not great for us. We could only do max 3 damage, so we could get 1 damage through by spending 2 mana. So we get 1 damage through, place a health token, just to mark damage, and also a fire token that will trigger the next attack. Then this will move. I can make 3 attacks, so on and so forth. I could then spend a mana. We'll just roll it out here. So unfortunately, see, I take another damage. I could spend a mana to get an extra attack. Won't go through. So you really want to have the right skills and the right abilities in order to take out the roaming monster. That's what you can see from the tutorial setup. There's only 1 mob. The monster kind of just spawns on the map, and you kind of have time to run away. But you get the idea how the wizard works. So let's look at the barbarian. And I gave them a common weapon because we gotten one before, and I want this attack to be good. So right now the barbarian is in Blood Rage stance. Now if, whenever they're attacking me, I'd say thought about spending rage to be in defensive stance, I could have then dealt 1 wound to the attacker for that first attack. But you'd have to spend rage. So you have to spend rage to trigger all these different effects. But now we'd build our die pool, which would be the yellow and orange. Next, we've got their defensive pool, which is 2 blacks and a blue. So we're already doing a little bit better. We can then spend a rage to add a yellow die. And one thing we did not mention is you can never go beyond the amount of dice available. For yellow and orange die, there are 3. You can never have more than 3. So then you roll the dice. Oh, I got to spend that rage to the attack. So I'd be taking 2 damage, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. So that's a really solid attack. Also, I could spend a rage if I wanted to reroll a die. And that would only take 1 damage, regenerating a rage. Now, I didn't take that from the right spot, but you get the idea. So that would be 4 damage. Can attack again. Maybe get lucky and do more. Not so much. That'd be another 2. It also costs another rage, as you saw. Try it again. So you can see, like right here, I took a bunch of damage, but was able to deal almost half as damage. So that just goes to show you how having the right equipment is essential. So you're taking a look at how the wizard as well as the berserker play, and anytime you want, you can spend rage just to change your stance so you can get extra movement points too. So lots of cool ways to, well, sorry, this doesn't move. Change the stance here to use your berserker and do tons of cool things. So you've got a good idea there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rogue and the shaman. The shaman's a little bit more complicated, but not quite. So take a look at them, and then I'll come back at you with a quick outro. Hopefully you're enjoying this how to play. Stick with me because we're almost done. Now I'm going to show you how to play the rogue and the shaman. So I've taken out a little bit of extra cards for the shaman just to talk about the way that they play. Now, one thing that I realized that I did not do during setup is that you do have potions in your starting items that you can get, a health potion or a mana potion. Each player will also start with one of those. I just wanted to add in that correction to the video before it slipped my mind. So we're really going to just show you how to set up the rogue, set up the shaman, how to play as them. The only thing I've done really is added a common magical weapon to the shaman, just to give you a better idea as to what this would be like if you're actually fighting the roaming monster. Notice I put them in a shadow zone just to make our life a little bit easier. And you can see the importance of shadow because of some stuff like what you have here with the rogue. So the rogue is very particular. You actually will be taking the 6 tokens that have these black backgrounds and then placing them into your rogue bag. I actually believe I might be missing actually one with a black background here. In any case, it doesn't matter for the playthrough, but you're going to be taking all the ones with a black background. I believe there's actually, I think there's 10. I thought there was 10 or 9. I can see somebody just neglected to grab. In any case, those represent your starting tokens. After that, you're going to pick a skill. In this case, if you start with tailored swiftness, you get to add these 2 colored tokens to your bag. Now on a rogue's turn, they will go ahead and they will draw 3 tokens, which will tell them what they can do. Well, it doesn't tell them what they can do, it tells them the bonus they get to their actions. So if we weren't in combat, we want to take a movement action. With this one, the rogue would have an extra movement point. If it's plus 2 MP, it'd be another movement point. As you can see in this bag, we have ones that may even give the rogue an extra attack die as well. So actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and take one of those out because it just works better with what we're showing. So you're trying to fight the Incubus Lord. Well, you get to decide what you want to do. Well, this is pretty cool because this one lets you draw another action token afterwards. So why not? We're in a shadow zone. We can do some cool stuff. So we take the shadow die. Of course, we build their defense. 2 blue and a black. We unfortunately only have the 1 yellow dagger, but we got the purple die. So let's see what happens there. Make the roll. Actually, not that bad. We get a damage through. After this, we'd get to draw another token, essentially giving us another action. Also, in Shadow, we can reroll 2 dice. So, might as well take the chance here. Maybe get nothing. And yeah, see, rerolling can be great. You can also spend 1 mana to let you reroll. And then, if you happen to roll this, something we haven't talked about, which is saving this for last, is the Shadow symbol. So if you roll this when you're in the shadow zone, you roll the dice, you get to trigger the shadow effect, and each player has a different shadow effect. So that's how the rogue will play. So as you can see, though, you can draw more and more actions with the rogue. Essentially, as you can see, draw one rogue token. If you're lucky enough, you could potentially even draw your entire bag. Now, these cards here are reference cards. They explain how the shadow tokens work and how the poison tokens work. Shadow means that when you're performing a shadow attack action, you gain that bonus. And poison means that when the enemy activates next time, they will take 2 damage. You can actually poison an enemy and just ignore them, and they will die on their following turn. And then, for example, let's say we're taking another attack action with the rogue. We'll use this one that gives them an extra die. Well, when we're rolling, we then have that extra yellow dice. And the rogue can act until they have no more tokens. So that is how you will play as the rogue. Very interesting, plays very differently than any other character, as you can see. But let's actually, you know what, since we're breaking it down piece by piece, let's just slide the Shaman onto the camera here. We can leave that, doesn't really matter. Let's talk about the Shaman. So the Shaman does have a starting skill, which means if you spend these resources from your chart, you get +1 orange die, or you can heal 2. As for the level 1 starting skill, you can spend, this is Firestorm, you spend 2 fire, 1 wind, get to roll a die and deal damage. Now, it does not tell you when, but there are level skills that are associated to these. I believe it's level 3 skills. You can summon these spirits, you'll place them in your zone, and you can use your actions to use the flame spirits. They can burn and freeze characters. Now you'll have to go up this chart with these elements to then trigger these skills. Now the way this chart works is that whenever you would gain mana, such as from a symbol like this, or even potentially from a mana potion, you can go up your track. Once you get to the max, you actually come down the track, but you flip it over, signifying that you have the bonus at the top for the entire round. Now, using these skills can only be done on your turn and when it tells you that you can do them. So let's say, we've been playing for a little bit here. Maybe we've got that extra die. We've got this. In terms of resources, we're trying to attack, deal damage. So we then build our die pool of 2 orange die because we'll spend the resources. So 2 orange die, a purple die. Pretty good shape here versus 2 blue and a black. And then you get to see what the effect is. And oof, nasty defense, but you can go ahead and gain a reroll. So that's not so bad. You get some stuff through, and then from this, you see we gain 2 mana. So we can spend it on this, meaning we can make that exact same identical attack again. Then get the shadow, which means you may increase any element to the max, which is really cool. So let's say you wanted your spirits to have more health later. You can increase it to the max and spend it. So lots of cool stuff, but that's how you play the Shaman. You're really going to want to be gaining mana, managing the track, trying to go up, and then also using these skills to help everyone. And healing is also a big part of your character, as you can see. So we've done it. We've gone through everything related to how to play Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape, at least what's in the core box. We did not talk about the bosses, and it's something that I don't really want to cover for the how to play because it's a little different. It's fairly straightforward. What happens is the boss track will replace the darkness track, and then you're going to just really follow actions like you see on the Incubus Lord. If it's something you'd like to see me cover, talking about how to face off against the bosses, how to use the other classes that are included in some of the expansions, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll see about putting a video about them together. But I think you spent enough time with me today, probably close to an hour, so I'm going to come back at you with a quick outro and get out of your hair. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you like what you saw, don't forget to click that like button, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that YouTube will let you know when our next video is released. Also, down below in the video description, you'll find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape, make sure you check out those feeds. There are plenty of pictures. There will also be some pictures from the campaigns when we do get it to the table. Also down there is a link to multizone.ca, a great Canadian game store. Click that link, you'll get 10% off your next purchase. It's a great way to support the channels. A portion of that purchase is returned to us. They also do have some Massive Darkness 2 stuff up now, so make sure that you check it out if you're looking for a copy of the game. And now popping up in front of me are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. Over here will be our most recent release. Over here will take you back to our review of Massive Darkness 2. With that being said, don't forget, keep playing games.